The time is precisely 1:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News edited by Romesh Peris and read by Chandima Virakon. Headlines. Global organizations convene roundtable discussion on Sri Lanka's reform programs. Aswasama Week to be launched to address ongoing concerns. The World Bank's high-level visit marks milestone in advancing climate-smart agriculture in Sri Lanka's dry zone. A new chairman appointed to the National Medicines Regulatory Authority. The Minister of Agriculture and Plantation Industries says a control price will be imposed for fertilizer if the need arises. The Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine announced the 7th annual academic session to take place in November. In international news, Israel's Prime Minister rejects calls for a ceasefire in Gaza, saying it would amount to a surrender to Hamas. In sports news, it's football. Lionel Messi wins record 8th Ballon d'Or for best player in the world. Local stories in detail. The representatives from the international and regional multilateral organizations have convened for a roundtable discussion with President Ranil Wickremesinghe, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena and other Sri Lankan government officials in Colombo today. The President's media division said the discussion took place as a follow-up to the previous roundtable discussion in December 2022. According to the PMD, the focus of today's discussion was on the government's reform programs aimed at moving from crisis to recovery and sustainable growth, and they discussed challenges, opportunities and commitments for Sri Lanka's development. The Managing Director for Operations of the World Bank, Anna Bajard, and Martin Reiser, the Regional Vice President of the World Bank for South Asia, conducted a field visit to the Climate Smart Farmer Training School in Tirupane on Sunday. The President's media division said in a statement, the purpose of their visit was to assess the progress of the Climate Smart Irrigated Agriculture project. The Managing Director for Operations of the World Bank made her visit to the country in response to a request made by President Ranil Wickremesinghe during his special meeting with President of the World Bank, Ajay Banga. The CSIAP has undertaken an ambitious initiative to establish a comprehensive farmer training school known as Deshaguna Suhuru Govipuhunu Pasala in Manakkulama village, Tirupane, situated in the Anuradhapura district. This farmer training school will play a pivotal role in training and equipping farmers with hands-on experience in climate-smart agriculture practices and cutting-edge agricultural technologies. Today, at the weekly Cabinet press briefing, Mass Media Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena said, despite the present economic situation in the country, the President has assured that the salaries of the state sector employees will be increased through the 2024 budget. Revealing the government's expenditure, the Treasury has collected 1,751 billion rupees as taxes for the year 2022. 956 billion rupees was spent on the state sector as salaries and 309 billion rupees was spent on pensions. In addition, 506 billion rupees was spent on Samurdhi beneficiaries. President Wickremesinghe will deliver the budget speech from noon on the 13th of next month. Minister of Agriculture and Plantation Industries Mahinda Amaravira says that a control price will be imposed for fertilizer if the need arises. Minister Amaravira said that if companies involved in importing fertilizer decide to go for a price hike, a control price will be introduced. The lawmakers said that the Cabinet of Ministers had already granted approval for the proposal to introduce a control price for fertilizer. He added that an allegation made by certain individuals citing a shortage of urea fertilizer is false. The Agriculture Ministry said that the state and private sector fertilizer companies have sufficient stocks to fertilizer for the Maha season. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with the local stories, Senior consultant physician Dr. Ananda Vijayavikrama has been appointed as the new chairman of the National Medicines Regulatory Authority. Minister of Health Ramesh Patirana appointed Dr. Ananda Vijayavikrama to the post. Senior consultant Dr. Vijayavikrama has replaced Professor S.D. Jayaratna as the NMRA chairman following several allegations over the importation of substandard medicines. Newly appointed Health Minister Patirana is also expected to name several new heads within the health services in a bid to overcome multiple issues in recent months. The Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine, led by its president Dr. Kumudini Jayasinghe and the council, announced the 7th annual academic session SIMCON. This conference is scheduled to take place from the 3rd to the 5th of November at the Hotel Galadari in Colombo. Collaborating with the Royal College of Physicians, Edinburgh, and the Association of Physicians of India, SIMCON aims to enrich clinical competence with compassionate care, making it a truly unique event in the field of internal medicine. One of the key highlights of SIMCON 2023 is the exam-oriented teaching sessions specifically designed for postgraduate trainees in medicine. These sessions will provide invaluable guidance and insights to help trainees excel in their professional journeys. To conclude the local news, the headlines again. Global organizations convene roundtable discussion on Sri Lanka's reform programs. Aswasuma Week to be launched to address ongoing concerns. The World Bank's high-level visit marks milestone in advancing climate-smart agriculture in Sri Lanka's dry zone. A new chairman appointed to the National Medicines Regulatory Authority. The Minister of Agriculture and Plantation Industries says a control price will be imposed for fertilizer if the need arises. The Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine announced the 7th annual academic session to take place in November. That concludes the local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatmya.
And on the main news story, the disbursement of the Aswasuma welfare payment for the month of August began on Wednesday. Meanwhile, in an effort to streamline the Aswasuma welfare program and address existing concerns, the Ministry of Finance has announced the implementation of an Aswasuma week from the 6th to the 11th of November. The objective of this initiative is to promptly rectify the issues affecting the program and ensure that deserving beneficiaries receive their entitled support without further delay. Meanwhile, the General Treasury is scheduled to release funds to state banks in order to facilitate the disbursement of the Aswasuma welfare payments for the month of August. The Welfare Benefits Board said the banks will receive funds today while the payments for beneficiaries will commence tomorrow. A total of 8.5 billion rupees will be disbursed to 1,365,000 beneficiaries within the next 2 days. That ends the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight. The Consumer Affairs Authority has introduced a hotline for the general public to inform of the vendors selling rice at higher rates beyond the maximum retail price introduced by the government and those who are hoarding the stocks. As such, the complaints can be submitted through the hotline 1977. Meanwhile, the authority has initiated raids in search of such vendors. That ends Watchlight. We move on to the world news now. The headlines. Israel's Prime Minister rejects calls for a ceasefire in Gaza, saying it would amount to a surrender to Hamas. Russia blames Ukraine and the West for Dagestan airport unrest. Train crash in India kills 14 people. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected calls for a ceasefire in Gaza, saying it would amount to a surrender to Hamas. Speaking in Tel Aviv, Netanyahu cited the Bible, saying, "This is a time for war." And meanwhile, UN aid agencies repeated their calls for humanitarian ceasefire at an emergency UN Security Council meeting. UNICEF says the situation in Gaza is growing worse by the hour, and the true cost of this latest escalation will be measured in children's lives. Moreover, an Indonesian-funded hospital in Gaza is struggling to treat a deluge of patients wounded in Israel bombardment amid dwindling medicine stocks and blackouts that have forced doctors to operate in darkness. Last week, the hospital lost power due to a blackout caused by a lack of fuel as Israel's blockade of the enclave prevented the entry of essential supplies. Moscow has blamed external interference for provoking unrest that closed an airport in Russia's Muslim-majority Republic of Dagestan, warning that it will not tolerate efforts to split Russian society. The Kremlin said on Monday that Ukraine, with which Russia is fighting a bitter war after invading last year, played a key role in fomenting an anti-Israel protest and subsequent violence at the airport. Russian officials have also inferred Western interference. Hundreds stormed Dagestan's main airport, ostensibly to protest against the arrival of a flight from Israel amid its war with Gaza on Sunday. Police have since arrested 60 active participants in the unrest. Southeastern Andhra Pradesh state officials have said a human error was the cause of a deadly train crash that killed at least 14 passengers and injured nearly 50 in India's southeastern Andhra Pradesh state. A passenger train overshot a signal on Sunday between the towns of Alamanda and Kankatapalle, striking a stationary train. At least 3 cars were derailed in the accident. Government officials told reporters on Monday that rescue efforts were over and the focus was now on track restoration. In his reaction on social media following the accident, Prime Minister Narendra Modi sought to assure people that officials were working to deal with the unfortunate train derailment. To end the world news, the headlines again. Israel's Prime Minister rejects calls for a ceasefire in Gaza, saying it would amount to a surrender to Hamas. Russia blames Ukraine and the West for Dagestan airport unrest. Train crash in India kills 14 people. That ends the world news.
Development news.
The Power and Energy Ministry said the Ceylon Electricity Board and Lanka Electricity Company allow the rooftop solar customers to migrate on one time among the Net Plus, Net Metering and Net Accounting schemes starting next week. The decision was announced following a meeting at the Ministry with CEB and LECO officials under the patronage of Minister Kanchana Vijayasekara. The minister said the same rate at which the power purchasing agreement was signed will be applied when migrating among the schemes. He further added that rooftop financing schemes will also be introduced by CEB and LECO for new rooftop developments starting in December. That ends the development news.
Sports news is brought to you by
Shakti. Refresh your mind and body with Shakti Energy Drink. 350 rupees only. Available at island-wide leading groceries and supermarkets. Shakti. Taste the power.
And on sports news, Argentina captain Lionel Messi has won a record-extending 8th Ballon d'Or for the best player in the world, beating Norway's UEFA Player of the Year and treble winner Erling Haaland of Manchester City to the prestigious prize. The 36-year-old is now 3 Ballon d'Ors clear of rival Cristiano Ronaldo, who won the last of his 5 trophies in 2017. Spain's Women's World Cup winner and Barcelona midfielder Aitana Bonmati won the Women's Ballon d'Or. Real Madrid and England midfielder Jude Bellingham won the Copa Trophy for the best under-21 player, while club teammate Vinicius Jr. was awarded the Socrates Award for his humanitarian work off the pitch. That ends Sports News.
Shakti. Refresh your mind and body with Shakti Energy Drink. 350 rupees only. Available at island-wide leading groceries and supermarkets. Shakti. Taste the power.
Go ekak thiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දකපු වීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
And on business news, the government, in a special communique published by President Ranil Wickremesinghe in his capacity as the Minister of Investment Promotion on October 25th, gazetted the requirements that need to be met in order to conduct duty-free retail business operations or duty-free shopping mall operations at the Colombo Port City. The Gazette stipulates that an investor is required to devote a minimum of $5 million to run a duty-free retail business and have international level experience in duty-free trade operations. Meanwhile, an investor needs to devote at least $7 million to run a duty-free shopping mall business. Prospective business investors will have 3 years to fulfill the requirements needed for them to be given tax exemptions lasting up to 20 years. That ends the business news.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak thiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දකපු වීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
And on economic news, Sri Lanka's commercial banks have built private reserves or settled foreign loans of about $1.49 billion up to August as market interest rates reduced domestic credit based on official data. According to central bank data, net foreign assets of Sri Lanka's commercial banks went up to 322 billion rupees by end August 2023 from a negative 153 billion in December. Official arrears of principal were $3.7 billion up to June 2023. Commercial banks had repaid loans or built reserves of about $2.8 billion. That ends the economic news.
Weather report.
And finally, we take a look at the weather report. The Department of Meteorology predicts showers or thunder showers in several places in most parts of the island in the afternoon. The Met Department said fairly heavy showers above 75 millimeters are likely in some places in the western, Sabragamua, central, southern and Uva provinces. It added showers will occur in the eastern province and in the Hambantota district during the morning. Meanwhile, the general public has been requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during thunder showers. That ends the weather report. And to end this bulletin of news, the headlines again. Global organizations convened round-table discussion on Sri Lanka's reform programs. Aswasuma Week to be launched to address ongoing concerns. The World Bank's high-level visit marks a milestone in advancing climate-smart agriculture in Sri Lanka's dry zone. A new chairman appointed to the National Medicines Regulatory Authority. The Minister of Agriculture and Plantation Industries says a control price will be imposed for fertilizer if the need arises. The Sri Lanka College of Internal Medicine announced the 7th annual academic session to take place in November. In international news, Israel's Prime Minister rejects calls for a ceasefire in Gaza, saying it would amount to a surrender to Hamas. In sports news, it's football. Lionel Messi wins a record 8th Ballon d'Or for Best Player in the world. With that, we conclude this bulletin of news from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Over to my friend and colleague Victor Raj to keep you entertained.